right, and we're back. Don't know if any of you had to refresh or anything. We should be back. We should be cooking. Should be good to go. Sorry if you're watching this on demand. We had a little glitch this morning, but it looks like everything's up and ready. Give me about 30 seconds here just to make sure we are live and rocking. All right, we are live now. Thank you. Man, that is annoying and unprofessional, and I'm very sorry about that. Give me 1 second. Let me just put out a quick little message to everyone so you guys know I'm live. Okay. Live again. Spy. QQQ. IWM. Bada bing, bada boom. All right. Should be good now. I'll give you guys a second. I'll file back in. Apologies. All right. Let me get my bearings. Anytime, I have a plan in mind. I'm ready to go. The energy's up. We're excited. Hatchet says it's working. Thank you, friend. I get excited. We're ready to go. It's a Friday. And anytime something like this throws me through a loop, it's a little annoying. So we're good, though. We're rocking. We're rolling. All right. Let's get into everything. So if you missed it, we talked about how SPY hit a new all-time high yesterday, rallied through September 11th, broke the previous all-time highs, made new all-time highs at the close. Also spoke briefly about how Apple had a key resistance right around that 230 area that I talked about early in the day. That said it was more than likely going to rally to 230 and basically stop there, which we did until the end of the day. I personally have puts open that expire today, the 230 puts, so they're in the money. I opened them up at 99 cents, which is exactly what they closed at. Right now, these are looking like I'm going to be okay so far. With a, what is that, 229.01 break even if I held them to the end of the day. So right now, definitely would be profitable if we assume we open over here. Apple had some bearish news basically right here in the pre-market in regards to the iPhone Air. So you're going to want to keep an eye on that. Good morning, Eddie. As I would like to say to you, as you said to me yesterday, you're right back to you. We also had a little bit of news come through on NVIDIA here at the open. Not too much of a reaction off that in regards to some cloud service competition with AWS. But outside of that, looking like a pretty quiet news day. We do have Michigan sentiment today at 10. So I'm giving you guys the speed run through everything like we'd like to do in the morning, but you're getting a little speed run. Michigan sentiment today at 10. You guys know if I can get exposure to play that, I like to play that. If I don't get a good opportunity, I won't. And the other thing that just came down the pike, which probably isn't going to affect the market, but maybe something you want to be cognizant of. It could affect the market depending on what is said, I guess. I don't know. Apparently, they caught the individual who assassinated Charlie Kirk. They're apparently going to have a press conference or talk about it at 9:30, right when the market opens. I don't anticipate that to have a market reaction. I'm just saying it could, depending on who's talking. I don't know if Trump's going to talk or whatever. Trump could talk and then say something that could affect the market. So I'm highlighting it to you as a potential risk factor. We don't know. So it's just something I just literally came across in the last 30 minutes or so right before I went live. Guys, do me a quick favor if you're watching now, because I lost a bunch of viewers on that switch over. If you're watching, and I don't normally ask you to do this anyway, but please like the stream wherever you are. Drop a little follow or interact, say hi in the chat, whatever. Because whenever I do 2 streams right away, it always kills the views. I know I lose people, and then they don't know how to get back. So if you could do me a favor and just reshare out the stream, drop a comment, whatever, some sort of interaction, just to help boost this one in the algorithm over the previous one, I greatly appreciate your support, just to make sure that people can find today's show. Thank you very much. Actually, let me do one more thing real quick and post that over here as well. Use that link. There you go. Okay. So today's going to be an interesting one. Obviously, it's Friday. If we look at this week's candle on the SPY, so we'll delete my doodles here. Really solid weekly candle thus far. I will continue to remind you that next week we have a potential powder keg brewing. With Wednesday being FOMC, we have Vixpiration, then we have OPEX as well. So a lot of market plumbing stuff at the same time, which is typical with Vixpiration and OPEX. But when you throw FOMC there in the mix, when you throw in the mix of already seeing a rally, off of the thought, in my opinion, that we're getting at least a 25-point cut, and now we're theorizing a 50 basis point cut. Or some people are. There's at least people are pricing in those odds on the futures market. The SPY's rallied 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 green weeks in a row on arguably declining volume. It's stable volume, but it's been ticking down. We'll see how today works out. Something where you want to exercise some level of caution in general. Getting a 6-week green run on the SPY isn't too common. When we go back and look in real time, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, red, red. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That was a little overstated, but that was off the back of in that mid 2023 time after we had that little bit of a bear market fall. Point being, when you get a strong move to the upside, especially week on week on week on week, you do want to pay attention to volume. You do want to pay attention to your closer time frames here on the daily. But with that being said, I still lean more bullish, cautiously bullish, at least until next Wednesday. So we'll see how that works out. All right, market is about to open. Folks, SPY getting a little dumpy here right in the open. I'm going to watch Apple because, like I said, I do have some exposure here. And I might close this one right away just so I'm not distracted. But we'll see how that works out for me. All right, market's open. Apple getting a little, surprisingly, a little bit of a pump. I do also want to highlight to you guys Grab, ticker symbol GRAB. We talked about it on this program. I have a video up on my channel about it as well. You're going to want to take a peek at Grab right now. It's in a very, very interesting spot on the chart. We're tipping near that breaking point where it can move on a very, very hard run. All right, I'm going to take out some of my Apple here. Excuse me a second, folks. Just trimming this up because it's obviously 0-day exposure. It's 18%. I might just cut the rest just so I don't have to be distracted while I'm on the show because I'm not really focused on this right now. I want to make sure focus on you guys, and we'll kind of go from there. How's SPY looking? SPY pretty flat in the open. Had a little bit of a dump. Now getting a little bit of a push up. Apple trying to push over that 230 level. What was yesterday's high? I know it was like 230.40 something, I believe. I closed 230.45. All right, so I'll watch this for another minute or two. And if as long as we don't break that, I'll keep these puts open. I'll give it like 5 or 10 minutes. If not, I'll close, and I'll close them right now. All right, I'm out of Apple. So wasn't a fantastic trade. I do think as long as we stay under yesterday's high, which right now we wicked, that Apple will come down in the day. So I'll watch this for a potential re-entry on a normal trade today. But for now, I'm not going to mess around with it. It's a 0-day, and I don't like really taking 0 days if I'm live and I'm not like really focused in on it. So I don't want to do you guys a disservice. I want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. I'm going to give you guys my full focus like I like to do when I'm live and not have any dead air because especially when I'm trading 0 days, I got to be like locked in. So we're not going to look at that for now. We'll go back to the market. Strange Maker, thanks for coming to the show. He says, Microsoft is so annoying with the bears. Microsoft's very interesting. I'm assuming you're saying that because you're bullish. This is, like I said yesterday, it's a really, really key level here. If Microsoft can find some bullishness right around here, and like I said, for this one in particular, I would personally want to wait until we're over like 512 before being a bull, or under this localized low, 492.37, before being a bear. Mainly because we're really, really, really tight here on all of our EMAs and MAs. You got the POC in the middle of here. So you got a lot of indecision, I would say. We've been here now about 2 weeks. And you could also justify it as a, we had a hard move overall, pop up on earnings, kind of grinding down, and now finding price discovery around this 500. So finding what fair price the market deems fair price is somewhere in this range. So we're trying to get a confirmation of if 500 is at least fair price and we move up from there, or if the market thinks it's overvalued and sells off as a result of the low breaking on Microsoft. So this one's a good one to day trade right now because you will see higher volatility intraday because you're in this squeeze spot with either way it can go. But with that being in mind, you want to be careful because you get squeezed out very easily. Either which way, right? You can see a bull push or a bear push here. I do prefer the bulls on this one If we can get over, if you want to use an early marker here, your 50 MA, you also have the red star here. But you even saw right here on the 5th of September where we got faked out on that SAR break, and on that 50 MA break, wicked it and just railed to the downside. Fell about, what is that, like 20 points? That was a bad day for Microsoft. So for me personally, if I'm going to pick a side on Microsoft, I want to wait to either one of those two previous parameters break. And then on top of that, probably wait till OPEX, like the end of OPEX, because next week's a busy week already. With these stocks that are in these like indecision zones, I don't like to take stabs on them before binary events. Now, I might miss the move or whatever, that's fine. But there's other stocks that I like, which I don't think this is an example of one that would take advantage of said move. But there's other stocks I like Grab, which again, I've done a video on this program. I highlighted it again in the Discord about 15 times yesterday. This is a phenomenal setup on the daily, on the weekly, on the monthly. And not to mention, I actually really like the company. This orange line here, it's not a flat top. I mean, you had a flat top arguably formed from 514 with a little bit of a fake out breakout there. But you have this declining level of resistance where we rejected here, had a little bit of a break, rejected. And now we're finally starting to break it to the upside. Arguably, you also have little inverse head and shoulders. If you want to zoom in and look at each one individually, you have a bunch of inverse head and shoulders, but more localized to the recent price action. You've been making higher lows. You're above all of your EMAs and MAs. You're above your short-term EMAs. You're above your long-term MAs. You're above your 50. You're above your 200. You're at this key point where right here on the chart between 555 and 591, there's a decent amount of resistance. However, on all time frames, breaking this 591 will trigger a hard upside move. Early trigger would be this 575 area, which puts you a few shekels above this previous high formed last November. But that would be my early trigger where I really want to start paying attention, because I might try to take a day trade or two off on here. But your daily is really good. The volume yesterday was fantastic. The weekly is a solid push on the weekly. And even the monthly here, which I'll get rid of my doodle so you can see more clearly, we just broke the monthly SAR, which you guys know I love my SAR indicator. We just broke the monthly SAR. So on every single time frame, now this looks like more like a flat top here when you look at the monthly. You have higher lows overall, and you have basically this flat top area of resistance right around this 550 area. This monthly is ready to squeeze. So you have every single time frame on your longer term time frames, your daily, your weekly, and monthly, have something really bullish and positive going for this name. Now, the reason I'm highlighting it is because we spoke about it on the program before, but the other reason I'm highlighting it is because of the fact that I was just alluding to Microsoft and how I didn't want to necessarily take a stab on it prior to FOMC or prior to OPEX next week. And the reason being, it's not really a surefire thing, right? There's a bullish and a bearish argument both ways. Something like Grab, which I don't necessarily think, I mean, I guess it's a smaller company, and it's not really. It's a $22 billion company, so it's not going to really be feeling the effects, and it's also a foreign company. It's not going to be feeling the effects of a rate cut. It might just get the boost from other smaller companies taking advantage of that, so it might just get the sentiment push. But I want to, if I am looking at companies that I am looking to take a stab on either which way, I definitely want them to look or have a setup similar to Grab in the respect that it is bullish on multiple time frames or bearish on multiple time frames, so that in the event next week, no matter what happens, either which way, it's not a toss in the air. It's not randomized. It's not like a coin toss. Kind of like where Microsoft is sitting right now, where there's an argument really both ways. I like to pick names like Grab if I'm looking to play through next week that are names that there really isn't there is not, from a technical standpoint, a bear argument on Grab as it is sitting on the daily, on the weekly, and on the monthly. You might have a shorter term argument somewhere in here. But at least longer term, there's no argument here, at least from a technical perspective. So that's why I like looking at setups like this as we head into more potentially volatile environment, where you're a little bit safer in that regard. Apple did end up rejecting, and I didn't hold my puts, and that's fine. It's whatever. I'd rather be safe than sorry. And I'm going to think that we're going to see more of a bear day today, which wouldn't make, well, I didn't even look at SPY yet. SPY coming down a little bit here at the open. A bear day today would make a little bit of sense. Yesterday was a pretty hard push on the market. We moved up about 1% overall on the day. It was 0.83%. Some level of a cool off. I wouldn't necessarily anticipate going sub 654.55, but somewhere above 654.55 and beneath yesterday's all-time high would make a lot of sense, barring any news catalysts. So in regards to news catalysts, barring the Michigan sentiment at 10 o'clock, which typically pushes IWM more than the SPY. Now IWM is kind of a different story here, where you're kind of holding, I mean, you're down a little bit, but you're kind of holding the yesterday's move pretty strongly. And as I've said to you guys before, we have clear skies to at least tap 242.39. So if Michigan sentiment comes in and it's perceived bullish, there's a strong possibility IWM gets a bit of a push today. That kind of muddies the water if today's going to be a bearish day on SPY. Obviously, you'd really want to look at big tech to see how big tech is participating or not participating in the overall move of the market. Hatchet says Microsoft has been having really big up moves after hours for a few days and dropping during the day. Yeah, things like that aren't necessarily shocking when you're talking about being in a period of price discovery. So again, when you're looking at something like this on the daily where there's an argument both ways, seeing those big moves after hours or pre-market isn't really shocking because people are constantly jockeying for positions. And obviously, pre-market and after hours are periods of lower liquidity. People get pushed around, price can get pushed around a little easier. So being in a range like this on a name like Microsoft, you're going to see people taking advantage of that where they can, get in long at 500, get out at 505 and scalp over and over and over and over because that opportunity will present itself. Like I said, though, as I'm looking at this again, I would favor a bullish reaction here over a bear reaction. You have your MACD trying to curl up once again. The 50 MA and the red star above I would use as your trigger short term. And then your confirmation's got to be over like 513-ish before getting too excited on the bull side of things. Your momentum's a little low. It's almost there, though. The weekly is a bit iffy, though. And the monthly could cool a little bit more. Yeah, it's in a period of price discovery. That's what it is. Nvidia today currently down a little bit. Probably feeling the effects of that news I alluded to in the pre-market, but nothing too crazy. If I'm a betting man, today's going to be more of a muted day for your mega cap names, where you're not going to see probably anything greater than a percent move either which way on a lot of these, but kind of a nothing burger kind of day. The exception of Tesla. Tesla has broken 360. You guys know I've said that number many, many times in this program. Tesla has broken 360. That is a big, 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 big deal. Yesterday, we actually technically broke it, closed above it, and today, we're still mushing above it, so it's looking like we're going to get a nice push here on Tesla potentially. Let's zoom in here. Yeah. It's looking like we're going to tap the GP here. So around 384.82. So about $6 higher realistic for Tesla. If it sustains this kind of momentum, I'm sure volume was high yesterday. I'm sure volume's pretty good today. Yep, volume's pretty solid today. So this is a really solid markup for Tesla. Meanwhile, Amazon's not doing too much. And let's go back to Open. We talked about Open yesterday. I actually took that segment of the show yesterday, made it into a video. Excuse me for a second. Made it into a video. And it was funny because when we focused on the video yesterday, we were like at 9:15 or whatever. So I had to make a little preface to the video because we closed yesterday basically at my next price target, which was 10.75. And I said, now that we've especially tapped this, you're going to be super careful. So you tapped 10.75 or 10.70 during market hours yesterday on Open, broke above it in the after hours just after it, rejected until close, and then you tested it again in pre-market. So you guys can see in real time how important these LOIs are on your chart, especially with like a meme name like Open. You're going to see reactions at these levels, and they will continuously react at these levels. So I still hold true to my thesis on Open that we're going to see some bearish price action because it needs to cool down. I'm not saying to spook any of you, But I do think we see it come back down to this 814 area, consolidating before getting a leg up and actually breaking that 1075. So me personally, I'm waiting till we get down here, chill down here for a little bit, let that IV compress, cool off, let the stock cool off, and then consider opening along, assuming that holds. Microsoft is up 1% so far. I believe they had news after hours yesterday that got them a little bit of a pop. Microsoft up about 1% here. I might be wrong. We actually might see some participation by the Mag 7 today. Tesla really leading the charge there. Gonna keep looking at Grab because I want to make sure that I keep an eye on this one. Pre-market high, or I'm sorry, after hours high yesterday, 567. Currently trading 561. I think this is this stock, it's a very big company comparatively to like an open, but especially if you want to play options, this is one where in full transparency, I have leaps open on Grab right now. I have 5.5 leaps for December 2027. So I do have an exposed long on this name. It's currently in the money. That's nice. But I think a name like this could easily, if you're patient, get back to $10 and possibly higher. But there's a whole video on my channel about that if you want to check that out. All right, back to the market right now. Down a little bit. Let's check out our sectors. Let's see what's going on across the board today. See if we can find some strength or weakness. All right, utilities moved up here in the open, up a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Energy up a little, selling off right now into our first 15 minutes here. Staples pretty flat. Yeah, tech's your mixed bag here. I'm not anticipating a move on the Mag 7 today, but I'd be happy to be wrong. I'm just not anticipating it. I would wait for Michigan sentiment just to see if we see divergence between the Qs and between IWM, because if Michigan sentiment comes in and it's perceived bullish, especially, if it's perceived bullish, that would especially help your small caps. So you might see a rotation out of the Qs and into IWM, which is very typical the last few months where we see short-term trends take over where money rotates out of IWM into the Qs and vice versa. So today would be one of those days where money would actually come out of the Qs and into IWM if Michigan sentiment's perceived bullish, at least in my opinion. Toby says Michigan sentiment today, an Atomcash angle fan favorite. Me too, my friend. It is a favorite of mine, as you know. XLRE pretty flat. XLB tried to move and get a little bit of rejection here. This is a very mixed bag kind of open. As we're looking through these sectors here, you're seeing a lot of little pushes up and then coming down a little bit. But you are seeing a little bit. I'm surprised consumer discretionary is not up. With Tesla up as much as it is, it's only up 0.8. Is 0.08. It's kind of crazy. But overall, this is going to be a mixed bag Friday, in my opinion. At least how it's sitting now. I think the prudent thing to do would be to wait for Michigan sentiment. I'm going to keep an eye on the SPY and see if I can get a stab for it. Or I prefer IWM. Where was yesterday? 238.99. Let's keep an eye. I might have missed my long right there. Or I would have taken a stab, but we'll keep an eye on IWM and see if there's a potential opportunity to get long or short before Michigan sentiment. We'll see if that opportunity does present itself today, and if it doesn't, hey, then we don't do anything, which is just fine. Eddie says, think your swim is down for me today, so I guess no full port YOLOing for me today. Yeah, that's always a good sign to not trade. And what I mean by that is I think yesterday IBKR had some issues. Webull for a minute had an issue there. Whenever I see my broker having issues or I hear brokers having issues, especially as an options trader. So if you're an investor, you're trading stock, not really much of a concern. If you're an options trader, especially as a day trader, and you're hearing bids and asks are flipped backwards and brokerages are down, please do not trade. It is not worth it because any money you could make on the market is absolutely impossible if you can't tell your broker you want to buy or sell it. Impossible. It doesn't matter. That's a a whole other area of risk where you can't even make the money. Like, it completely defeats the purpose. When the market plumbing is broken, then you don't want to trade at all because you're just exposing yourself to extra risk. Like, you could be wrong on a trade, and at least you're wrong on the trade. You made a mistake, whatever happens, right? You're just wrong, it happens, right? But if you can't even close your position out, you may be right on the trade. You may be up 5,000%, but it doesn't matter if you can't close it. And that might actually end up turning into a loss, and then you're just really upset. Right? So if you start hearing or seeing and other people reporting broker issues, like even Eddie saying that, tells me that if I'm going to trade today, because I don't, so far E-Trade's okay, Public's okay, Webull seems okay, Fidelity seems okay, so all the things I use seem okay. But if I notice there's an issue, and I already know there's an issue with Thinkorswim, then I definitely know to say, all right, I'm not trading today, or if I do, it's equity. It's not something, or it's a long-term swing, whatever, where I'm not looking to take profit or de-risk today. So a little word from the wise on a lesson I learned the hard way when I saw there were people complaining on social media, and this was a little while ago, and I took a trade anyway, and that sucked. So it was like a 80% gain or something like that. I couldn't sell, and then it ended up being like a 40% loss by the time I could sell. So painful. You don't want that experience if you can avoid it. All right. Let me just make sure. Did we get any news on? I'm just curious to see. Oh, we got some Amazon and Google news. That just blinked on my screen and went away. Amazon and Google probed by the FTC over search advertising practices. FTC is scrutinizing whether Amazon and Google misled advertisers. Both sold off on the news. That was a little delayed on my part. That came through a little while ago. I just happened to miss it. I didn't have my news aggregator up, so I missed that, unfortunately. So just to keep you guys abreast of that situation. Come on, grab again. I'm gonna keep saying it. Grab. 575 is your first trigger. That puts you over that previous high, which is 572. Getting over that, if you break 591, this thing's in full like launchpad mode. Now, to be fair, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 green days in a row. It's a little extended. I personally think that we tap probably around here. We'll probably double top it, tap $5.72, come back down, consolidate for a week or so, and then launch. That would be preferred because I think you'd get a little bit more momentum that way. But hey, I'm not going to be mad if this thing just melts to the upside. I don't think we had any news either on it. No, but I like whenever I see this on my news blotter. Unusual open active. Our options. I like that. All right, let's check back in on SPY and IWM. It's not looking like we have an edge here. So normally before Michigan sentiment, if I can get long or short and I can realize some of the gains and then slap a stop on or whatever, I like that exposure because that's basically free money for me, especially on an anticipated bigger move. You could argue here that you got a really, and I'm saying really ugly, inverse head and shoulders. If this is arguably a shoulder, if this is a head and this currently is forming to be a shoulder, with a deformed, I don't know what you would call that. If this is the head, that's a shoulder. Deformed knee, broken leg, whatever you want to call that. It doesn't look like we have an edge here for me to take a position, or at least take a position that's worthwhile. In terms of a strangle, it's probably not worth it either. It's about $1. So if I'm planning for 242 and a strangle at 240 is costing me about it's $1.20, and it's not enough juice for the squeeze on a 0 day. I'm not going to try to strangle it either. There's times where a strangle works out really nicely, and there's other times where it just doesn't work. Nvidia pretty flat. Microsoft had that pop, came back down. Price action seems pretty wide today. Meta making a little bit of like a double bottoming here. Try to get some upside here. Remember, Google and Amazon had that negative news come out. Open back to 986. There's Tesla. Man, up almost 4% on the day. We'll see if we hit my price target or not. I have no longs on Tesla. In fact, you guys know I was bearish if Tesla couldn't break 360. So now we're over 360. That flips my outlook on Tesla more to like a neutral for now, because I have to wait and see if we reaffirm 360 as some level of support before getting too excited. But for now, I just stay neutral on Tesla. I wouldn't have a bias either which way. Alrighty. 568 on grab. SPY pretty flat. Q's pretty flat. Yeah, this is not advantageous to take a position before Michigan sentiment in this environment. Sometimes you guys will see we have a really nice move down or a nice move up where we can take the opposite side of that. Get, like I said, take some profit beforehand and ride risk free. Even taking a short up here is not something I would personally do. And you guys, for those of you who know me or you're in our community, I'm very, very particular when I take a short. In fact, as it pertains to the indexes, I started tracking it in 2025 because I was curious on how my performance would be on shorting the indexes. And shorting the indexes alone, anytime I've alerted an index short, 127% of the time, I'm sorry, out of 139 trades alerted that were index shorts, 127 were successful, which means there's a 91.4% hit rate anytime I short the SPY Qs or IWM. So I'm telling you, I personally wouldn't take the short up here at that 240 level. It's not good risk to reward. Even though I would be green by now, obviously, in some degree, it just wouldn't work out too well. Sigma over on Twitch says, Airy? I don't even know. Airy and LDI stock. Let's go, boys. We all eat. Much love, Speed Gang. Shout out Drake. Yeah, that sounds like some brain rot I'd hear on Twitch. Hey, but thanks for hanging out with us, man. Appreciate it. Shout out Drake. I'm sure he watches the stream all the time. Drake is actually one of my #1 fans, actually. Believe it or not. I've got about 100 viewers right now, and Drake is one that's consistently here. We actually have a collab going on his next track. Really big thing we're not talking about yet, so I really shouldn't have even said that. But, just keep down there. Not a lot of people watching, so we'll keep that under the wraps, but you might see me on a Drake track, just letting you guys know. Anyway, SPY got a little bit of a push here. Let's see if we can source the location of said push. Microsoft getting a little bit of a rally here. Toby says, shout out, gang, gang. Gang, gang. Apple getting a little bit of push here. So we're looking like Meta confirming that little bit of a double bottom, trying to get a little momentum here. So we're seeing like we're getting a little bit of momentum. Man, what a beast on Tesla. We're going to tap my LOI. Yeah, Strange Maker just said, wow, Tesla going. Yep. All right, who wants me to take a ballsy short? Ballsy short. Ooh, that's expensive too. Ballsy short. Wow, they were 14 at open. Ooh, $4 right now. That's a ballsy short. I'm going to wait 1 second. Volume's high here. All right, we're at the LOI. That is a real ballsy short if I take it. I'm feeling a little bold. All right, long the 385 puts on Tesla for today. I filled at 395. In LOIs, we have trust. In LOIs, we believe. And I have extra confidence because Strange Maker came to the chat and he said, wow, Tesla going. So when people get hype like that, that means short. All right, I'm going to take a few off here. Let's not get too crazy. It's a 0 day. Let's make our money. All right, I trimmed out here. I'm going to trim again. Gonna trim again. Whew, 17% on the last trim. Oh, baby, trim one more time. 22%. Strange Maker said lol. Toby said classic topping from chat. Let's go, Strange Maker! I'm gonna add a stop loss at break even. Can't complain about a quick 21% off of a massive monster rally, shorting the beast. Shorting the beast and making money off its back. Now we do have data here in 1 minute. I don't think Tesla will be affected by it. We're very close to my stop. I have a 395 entry. We're currently trading 450. We're now wicking the 0.618 retracement. If this fires down, realistically, I'd look for 381.65 and really the POC, maybe a little higher, 380-ish, and then the POC right here at 378.61 if we actually get a retracement here. Now, these are 385s. Right now, we're in the money. So from an intrinsic value point of view, if we got down to like 378, and this is if we wait all the way to the end of the day, that would be, what, $7 a contract, right? Yeah, so still 100% gain potentially on the table here, at least. So good risk to reward if the bulls can't hold it together. And if they can, guess what? I don't lose any money. But look at the LOI in real time, baby. Woo. That's a solid snipe. Hanging in the lure of snipe. Now we can wait and see what may happen next. All right, so 10 o'clock rolled around. We're going to pop back to Tesla. I got the contract up here on the watch list so you guys can see it in real time. I'm probably going to get stopped. But if it doesn't, great. Where's my Russell? Kind of a muted reaction, all things considered. All right, my stop hit on Tesla. So, two things on Tesla there. One. All right, actually, let me rephrase this. Two things on this Tesla play you can learn from what I just did. Now, if we double top, I might get back in, but I think we're going to break it and keep going. One, when you're in a short, you never overstay your welcome. Two, take profits very quickly when you're in a short. If you're shorting a name with momentum, this clearly has bull momentum. You are being, like I said, it's a ballsy short, but you can make some quick money pretty quickly. Like I said, I made 20% or whatever on that, right? And if you're like me, you had the ability to put a stop loss on at break even. It gives you the ability that if it does see more bearishness, you can capture more downside. It's great. But those two rules are very, very important. You take a short, if you are going to short a name with momentum, you take it at a key point of support resistance. In this case, this level I already had mapped out from months ago, wicked it, took my short, took profit all the way down here, and put my stop loss on when I got my first green candle, and now I didn't lose any money. So if you are going to take a ballsy short specifically, because longs are so much more forgiving, but you are going to take a short and it's a ballsy short, those are the kind of parameters you want to operate under. Now, we are rejecting it again. I don't know if I have the heart to do it twice. And I don't want to, what's the word? I don't want to chance my luck here. I don't want to push my luck. There we go. Because if it does break this, it will get a continued push to the upside. And the fact that we already broke it on higher volume here, we did reject it. We left a wick. There could be a period of consolidation here before getting a harder break to the upside here, which would be another big move. But we are in the GP here, which is also some additional confluence. So if I did want to take another short, I'd look at the top of the GP here, which is 393.51, and that's from that recent high retracement down to the most recent low. So if we do get all the way up here, then I can look for another short potentially. And again, depending on how technicals look, etc. So we'll keep this one on watch. We'll come back to it if necessary. Grab. Grab, 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 grab. 1 penny off of that high. Higher volume. Highest volume of the day, actually. Grab, 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 grab. Grab, 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 grab. Keep an eye on this name. That high, again, from, what is this, November? November of last year is very close to getting tapped. Now, I, again, am anticipating it to fail. I'm anticipating a tap and a rejection. But if we see volume like this through that tap, you're going to look for 575 for confirmation. Getting over that, the only level you have left on all time frames is 591. If you're above that, this thing is the ability to melt up, which is crazy to say because it is a $23 billion company, but it can melt up. And I personally believe, based on what this company does, how they operate, etc., that they're undervalued right now at its current market cap. Eddie says, great sniped. Would have loved to join you, but I can't. Oh, good. I can focus more on the stream. Hey, Eddie. Who knows? Maybe. So maybe, because Eddie said earlier that Thinkorswim is down. Maybe that prevented you from getting stuck in that Tesla put. Right? Maybe you would have taken the trade without knowing Thinkorswim was down. And, all right, you would have been still okay by now. But maybe if this kept moving up and then whenever it turns back on, you would have had like a 70% loss or whatever, right? You would not be happy then. So... Everything happens for a reason, especially things like that. All right, I'm going to stock Grab here because I actually might take a day trade on Grab. Probably do next week's contracts, though. These sixes are fascinating to me for next week. Next week's OPEX. Volume's pretty low on them. It does have about 10K of open interest. I'm sure the 5.5s are much better. 5.5s, also about 10K of open interest, 300 volume. The 6s have about 700 volume. Makes sense because it's a much smaller chain, or cheaper chain, I should say. No bears, really, on the options chain for next week into OPEX. But getting over 6 could give you a little bit of a gamma ramp there. Not much, because there's not much here to ramp, to be fair. But you're going to force market makers start to hedge for these $6 calls, which would be really nice. What about this week? This week, much thinner on the chain. Makes sense as a weekly contract. Let's look at next October. There we go. That's what I want to see. So this is next October on Grab. Look at that. 60K parked on the OI on the $6 calls on Grab. And then you got 17K and 8K. 17K parked on the 7s, 8K parked on the 8s. You've got some bears chilling around 6, but most of them are down here at 5. So this really supports my thesis. If we get over 6, there's going to be a lot of delta hedging. And I'm just looking at the monthly contracts here. We can really get in the weeds and look at all of them, but just looking at the monthly contracts here, especially getting over 6, you're going to get some short-term momentum from next week's OPEX contracts of 10K, almost 11K. And then the following month's OPEX, we got 60K parked there. That is massive for this company. So that is a very, 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 very interesting opportunity here on Grab in terms of what it needs from an options point of view to get a hard push to the upside. So it's got the technical support, it's got the option support. As long as it doesn't have news that kills it or any other sort of ancillary thing that we have no control over, this thing is going to melt up, to be clear. We've now officially double topped on Grab. It has now double topped the November high. Wow. All right, let's go back to SPY here. SPY getting a little bit of a push up here off the back of Michigan sentiment. Still below yesterday's high, so we have not made a new all-time high yet. Q's basically back to around open price. And interestingly enough, IWM went down. What was the actual Michigan number? Because I didn't look. All right, so Michigan came in as expected. Which I wouldn't logically theorize that would give you a bearish move on IWM, but it could just be a muted move where we're not seeing much of a reaction at all, which I guess makes some level of sense because the news just came in as expected, which is fine. Let's see. Volatility today. Just slowly plodding down. RV also moving down. So this is nice to see. When we see the VVIX going down and VIX going down, that supports more of a bull narrative. As I said earlier in the show, I'm more of sitting in the camp of Grab just made a new 52-week high. I'm more or less sitting in the camp of cautious bull, where we're slowly plodding our way to the upside, right? And that's what I think we're seeing here with the VIX going down, with confirmed VVIX going down. So it's saying the volatility of volatility is lower, plus VIX is going down. So the market feels more certain about where it's going, at least in the near term. That can change, because you guys know how quickly the VIX moves. That can change in a flip of a dime. But at least as we're sitting right now, there's a trend, use that word, that volatility should continue to decay a bit. I like to pick my words very specifically so you guys understand what I'm seeing. You don't read too deep into it. Let me check this out real quick. Oops. Good. There we go. Sorry, I just had to manage something real quick. And grab new 52-week high. Actually, I should post that. Let's post that here. Oop. Alrighty. Let's take a peek at Tesla again. Yeah, so this is why I said you don't overstay your short. Now, again, I'm looking for that opportunity right here. That 393.51 is where I'm interested in potentially taking another short on Tesla. But it's pushing hard. This is a squeeze. We're going. It's a decent breakout. Man, I just gave you props. Don't sell off now. I just said you had a decent break off. It's not the time to sell. You're going to make Drake really upset. SPY getting a little bit of red here. IWM trending lower. Now, IWM was the hottest of the three that I tracked yesterday. Up 1.8% yesterday. Conversely, the Qs were only up 0.5 and SPY was up about 0.8. So IWM was up the most, so getting a deeper level of contrition today would make some level of sense comparatively. So a larger pullback in IWM makes more sense comparative to SPY or the Qs, simply due to the fact that it had a bigger move yesterday. Makes logical sense. But the fact that it's red as much as it is, while we're seeing the Qs be at least green for now, and making a new all-time high, is something to take note of. As I said earlier in the show, when we were looking at the sectors, I talk about how there's divergence between the indexes sometimes, where we see money rotate out of one into another. In this case, we could see a little bit of rotation potentially going into the Qs. They're clearly diverged. IWM has formed a bear trend, at least near term here, to the downside, while the Qs has just been kind of grinding up. So there is a possibility here that we're seeing a little bit of divergence to end the week with small caps. Now, that is also supported by some level of a narrative. Like I said, that the IWM was a little overextended comparative to its peers, and getting some level of a drawback today would make a lot of sense. So it's not that it's anything to be concerned about, but it's something to keep in the back of your head. Okay, Apple. Nice little push here. Happy I closed those puts. Could have made a little bit more money if I waited, but happy I closed those puts. Over that 238 level, Apple looks pretty good here in the near term. You're going to want to watch. Got about another buck here. Shy of a buck. 233.36 fills this gap that we have open. Left open on 9.9. So you got about 80 cents or so to fill that gap. That's where I look for some level of resistance before making a decision there. Meta's another one of these names. I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but I'll say it again in case we missed it. It's similar to Microsoft in the respect that it's in this price discovery zone where you don't really want to mess with it unless you're just intraday trading it. You don't have a really confirmed trend. And that's what's concerning to me. You could argue NVIDIA is making some level of a base up here. You could argue Microsoft's making a base. You could argue Meta's making some sort of a base. Not Google, not Apple, not Tesla anymore. You could argue that Amazon's making a base. So when you see these bigger companies kind of sitting in tighter price action and the market's anticipating news, which we're anticipating volatility. Now, your VIX won't reflect that, which makes sense when we understand what VIX is. That's why I said you can't just look at VIX as a measure of volatility. You understand what the VIX or how the VIX gets its value. So when the market's kind of sitting in this zone of indecision, that's where you want to exercise control and patience. That's kind of what I'm really trying to drive home. And that's why I've been saying on every show, essentially, that day traders right now have an edge over your swing traders because the overnight sessions could be more drastic than they typically are. Now, there's a lot of money to be made there as well, but there's also a lot of money to be lost if you're wrong. And when you have setups on NVIDIA and on Microsoft and on Meta, where on the daily and on the weekly, you could make an argument both ways. You want to take that into the back of your head with your general market exposure, like looking at the SPY or the Qs, because these names will heavily drag down or help the market if they go one way or the other, right? Obviously. But the trends aren't aligning, right? There's not a clear which way that we're necessarily going to go. In times like that, you want to be more risk off. Like I like to focus on this program. I'm a cautious bull right now. I'm 60-40 bull to bear. If I'm going to bet, I prefer to be a bull right now. But it's a cautious bull, meaning I can see an argument where things flip on a dime real quick. So I need to be ready to pull that ripcord if I am going to pull that ripcord. And that's why I have very, very little long-term exposure right now that isn't equities. So very long-term exposure in options, with the exception of Grab triggering my trigger at 576. We are now at 577. We have broken the trigger level. The only level that is left on Grab to go is $5.91. If and when that level goes, this moves into a strong melt-up phase. Look at this weekly candle on Grab, 12% on the week thus far. This is going to make a monster move. We've broken the monthly SAR. You're breaking the flat top on the monthly. The weekly, strong move. Big old inverse head and shouldery kind of look. The MACD is starting to flip over on higher volume. The daily, I mean, this is as bullish as you can get. Now, I would prefer to have had a little bit of a pullback, some consolidation, let the short-term EMAs catch up, build a higher base above or around this area, which it still could do that. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to be mad if this thing just pops, breaks 591, and starts to melt. Because that is like your melting point. You break 591, I'm going to put my lines back on the chart. This thing will melt up. Now, I'm not saying it will be an easy break, but if it does break that, this thing's going to go on so many radars. It's going to go on everyone's algorithm. You're going to see people posting about social media, which is funny because, again, it's a larger company. It's not like a very small company. It's $23 billion, but the opportunity on this name is very, 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 very good. Very good. If this was a smaller cap company, I'd probably get in trouble for trying to pump it or something, which I'm clearly not. I'm just very excited over my position that is doing very, very well today. And hopeful that it will continue to do well. Anyway, and I really like when I pick these things out of the dirt. I don't even remember where I went long. I'd have to check, but when I find a setup like this, it's like, all right, it might take a little while, especially when you have a leap trade workout on options. Like equity trades are great when they work and everything, but when you have a leap trade workout, it's magnifique. It's fantastic. It's great. Now, my homeboy Drake will tell you all about that. He's a massive leap trader. I mean, Drake is out there. He's so busy, but he is actually an expert leap trader. A lot of people don't know that about Drake, which is really fascinating. But he's actually really, really, really great leap trader. He knows all of his Greeks. He knows exactly where intrinsic and extrinsic value are. So if you want to be more like Drake, all you got to do is watch the Atomcash angle, which if you haven't already, you should. Make sure to interact with the stream, drop a like or a comment, say hi in the chat. Make sure you follow me if you haven't already, or if you haven't, pop over to the YouTube channel, hit subscribe, and when we get to 500 subscribers, we will do this show every single day. So if you enjoy the content, if you like having a little morning energy to look at your charts, if you like having a little bit of entertainment instead of everyone else who's on doing a live stream or on Twitter Spaces, sitting in dead silence, staring at charts going, Grab's up 10%. If you want some energy in your morning and actually learn something that's valuable, then this is the show for you. I appreciate your support and thank you for coming to hang out on the stream today. TD says, who's Drake? I don't have a clever comeback for that one. besides the literal answer, Drake is actually the expert trader of our times. He is actually the next Warren Buffett, which a lot of people are, as they say, sleeping on this. He is going to be the next Warren Buffett, the next Bill Ackerman or whatever his name is, the next Jim Cramer, which is the highest honor you could get in the investing realm. To be the next Jim Cramer, Drake is going to be that individual. So you want to make sure. And if you actually, fun fact, if you take all of Drake's top 5 hit songs and you play them in reverse, he actually tells you what stocks to buy that will be successful in the next 20 years. They're in there. Now, if you actually go back and do that, God bless, you're wasting your time. But it's still funny. All right. Look at that SPY. Not much to see here. Rejecting off of those, or just shy of yesterday's highs. I really expect kind of a muted move today. If anything, like I said, it looks like we're going to get a little bit of bearishness out of IWM, which is kind of expected. The Qs, you might see some bullishness conversely as we see some money flow around. And the VIX is just kind of plotting to the downside. So today might be a good day where you're not zero-day trading unless you're picking a name like Tesla at a key resistance point or key support point to take a trade, get in and out kind of thing. But today may be a very lower risk day if you're an options trader, if you typically trade 0 DTEs, either that or you want to be scalpy in and out kind of thing. Slapping stop losses on right away sort of environment take. Just looking over what we're seeing, looking at the sectors, looking at our Mag 7 here. Most things aren't, price action isn't moving as wide as I would like to see for if I'm taking 0-day options, I guess I should say. All right, keep an eye on Tesla because now we're consolidating around my LOI, and if the LOI breaks to the upside and we tap that top level, that's 1,000,000% where I want to take my short. Toby, I've actually heard that quote from Drake. Yeah, Drake once said, "Warren Buffett who?" Yeah, it's that is what he said. Grab at 580. We are 11 cents away from breaking a massive, massive, massive trigger. The fact, so anytime I give you guys a trigger level, if you watch the program, you know I'll say the word trigger. Trigger is a point of decent resistance where I typically want to scale out of a position, especially if I'm in like a day trade, where if it breaks, there's much more left. Like it will move probably pretty hard, but it won't be easy, right? That's what I define as a trigger. For context, Grab has broken 4 triggers in the last 2 days on high volume. In fact, Grab's daily volume today so far, we're not even an hour into the market, is 27 million, and that's right around where it normally trades on the day. Sometimes it goes a little higher, it fluctuates, right? That's normally what it gets in a full day. So, Toby said that he heard that Drake bought open at 56 cents. Well, I've actually heard that he got into GameStop before Roaring Kitty did. And actually, he was the one who shot it down because he sold all of his shares at 420.69. Which, if you don't know, that was the high of the GameStop squeeze, ironically. And that was all Drake. So, yeah, some people love him, some people hate him for that, but you can't deny the man's legend. People who hate dry humor are, like, absolutely not entertained. SPY getting a little bit of a push here. Yeah, mostly attributed to the Qs. If you guys have a chart you want to drop, feel free to drop it. We'll take a peek. But today, be honest with you, I'm not looking at anything. I mean, Apple's actually on a solid run after it broke and confirmed to break that 230 area. Outside of Apple, which is, like I said, it's got this gap to fill. After that, it'd be a little more trepidatious. That gap fill is just filled, actually. Like, literally right now. So we'll see if it continues to push to the upside. Outside of that, though, I just don't like the price action I'm seeing, I guess is what I'm trying to say. It's not that it's bad. It's not that you can't make money. For me, it's not fantastic. especially on the market. So the markets kind of dictate my risk parameters. So when I see the market kind of doing this, where ultimately we're not even, we're under $1 on the range today. I'm sorry, we are at $1.05 is the range from top to bottom today. For the Qs, $1.70. IWM's a little bit different. It's falling a bit more. It's a little more volatile. But still, when I'm seeing like under $1 range on the SPY, that typically tells me in general to be risk off. Haters will say it's fake. I heard, Eddie says, I heard that Drake's Thinkorswim never goes down. It's true. William says Apple ripping. Yeah, we just went over that real quick. It filled the gap. It's still pushing on higher volumes. That's what you're going to want to see. My next LOI on Apple here is up here at 236.85. So will we see another $3 here in Apple today? I don't think so, but we can we'll keep an eye on it. I'm more interested on the short on Tesla for an opportunity intraday. William asks, how's the volume on SPY? So if you guys don't know, I like to use SPY outside of what I just spoke about in terms of range. I like to use SPY's volume as a barometer of my risk. So if I'm looking to day trade, my rule of thumb is I don't want to day trade if SPY's volume is less than 100K per minute or less than 500K per 5 minute. So your VMA right now is at 138K. So we're over 100K. Now it is trending lower, so that's typically when I'd pop over to my 5 minute, which makes sense as we get into like the midday volume can dip. Which sometimes I'll still trade midday. It kind of depends on if something's like a really solid setup or anything. But looking at the volume right now on SPY, volume is fine. We're over 500K across the board. No candles dip below 500K, so volume is really good. It's just that price action in general is just very, like I said, muted. We're not really going anywhere, unfortunately. So today's definitely more of like a stock pickers kind of day, assuming the SPY doesn't go anywhere and just kind of floats around. All right, be ready on Tesla here. Again, the short I'm looking for. Drag up my chart here. 393.51. William says Tesla's going to 400. Okay, we'll see. I'm not saying you're wrong, but the market does love whole numbers like that. You're not wrong about that. Now, if I do take a short, debating if I want a little bit more volatility or not. I'll keep an eye the 395s, right? What is that? 393. I'll keep an eye on the 395s. That puts me a little bit in the money. So I can take a little risk off. And those are expensive right now. Right now they're at about $6 a pop. They're not cheap. And this is not a trade you want to rush into. But purely speaking from an intrinsic value point of view, if I'm at the 395s and we back test back to this LOI down here at 386, by the end of the day, those would be worth $11 a contract. If I get in around $5.50, $6, that's still giving me about 100% gain. So the risk reward is good if the entry is right, which right now, like I said, I'm doing rough math in my head from a $6 entry, assuming when we tap this, if we tap the top of the GP here, that those contracts be around like 550-ish. That leaves a potential for 100% gain getting back to the LOI. Yeah, I mean, you can see right here on this is the options chart. It was around $10 at that point in time, so that lines up with my thesis. Because especially on 0 days, they're going, and if they're in the money, they're going to look at more intrinsic value. Now, there's obviously going to be some extrinsic value, but it depends. So we'll keep an eye on this for now. This is not one I'm going to rush into. If we see this scenario here, like we saw on the 958 candle, where we break it, we start to leave a wick, that's where I'm probably going to want to take my stab. So you guys have the game plan. You know what I'm going to do. You know where I'm going to do it. Now it's a matter of if it comes. If it doesn't, that's okay too. But we're going to watch this one just for a minute here, and we'll see. Looking across the board, Apple's still going right now. Good little move on Apple. Microsoft being up 1% is a little deceiving because it did get the after hours move yesterday, so it did hang on to some of its gains, but at least intraday, it's not really going too much of anywhere. Same with Nvidia. Nvidia looks like it's basing on the day, like it's going to move somewhere. I think Nvidia, I mean, it might get pinned today at that 177.50 area. That wouldn't be shocking, and it makes a lot of sense based on obviously where the price action is right now. If Nvidia does see some bearishness down to like 175, I might consider a long intraday. But we will wait and see. All right, Tesla. If you're going to tap this level, you're going to tap it like within the next like 5 minutes. It's going to happen. It's going to happen sooner than later. Let's see if I'm right. It's 10:29. So by 10:34, if it's going to tap it, it should tap it. Which I guess if you want to do calls, you do with that information what you will. IWM back to 239. SPY's almost flat on the day. All right, getting a little bit of push here. One more dollar, Tesla. One more dollar. Those 395 puts currently are at $6. Leaving a little bit of wick here. It's not having a great time in the spot. It's paying real close attention because with a 0 day, we got to pull the trigger when we got to pull the trigger. You don't want to be late. You're seeing a lot come through the tape here. Volume is lower off of that push, however. So this could be a period of consolidation just before it taps that level. Like I said, before 1034, it should tap that top line, that 393.51. It's 1031, so we got about 3 more minutes here. And again, if we tap it, that doesn't mean, okay, opening a short right away. It means now I'm interested in a short, and depending on what things look like, I may open a short. There's an important distinction there that just because a level gets tapped or something, it doesn't mean you immediately look to short it. I will say the wicks that we're leaving behind right now. So wick on the 1 minute. We're leaving 4 wicks up here. Does not inspire strength. You also want to keep in mind you're in the GP right now. You're in it. And you're near the top of it. Coming from beneath typically will act as some level of a resistance. So that's kind of what I'm waiting to see. That's why I'm saying at the very, very tip top here might be a really good place to consider a short. I'm very tempted to get in like now. But I'm going to wait. Volume's starting to drop off a little bit. It's trying to break the top of the range. Okay, the range broke. So let's see what happens now. Perfect. Those contracts are worth 550 and we haven't even tapped it yet. So that was the range I wanted them to be in. Oh, 6 cents away. There it is. There's the tap. Now we wait. So we're right on time. I said before 10:34, it's 10:32 and some change. So if we leave a wick on this 1 minute candle, then I'm very, very interested. So just be ready to pull the trigger if you're interested in that kind of trade. Now, if it just pushes above it, I don't want to take it at all. Let's see how the volume is on this candle here. Otherwise, I'm going to side with William here and say that we're going to see Tesla go to 400 today. It's a whole number. It's easy. It makes a lot of sense. All right, I'm going to take a stab. I'm going to take a stab right now. All right, I'm in at $5.30 a contract. Pray for me. So I want to see a back test of this range here. And I'll probably trim some. And then if the bottom of this range breaks, then we're probably going to go back to my LOI here. But we'll keep risk pretty tight. MACD's green curling up. Again, a little weak here. Good volume on this red candle. Obviously, we're shorting the bull trend here, but things can't go up forever. And we get little periods like we shorted right here of contrition that we like to take advantage of. And that's kind of what I'm looking at here on Tesla. As a parent, like I'm trying to do, snipe the top once again. So we'll see if that top gets sniped twice in a row. Leaving two doji-esque candles with wicks here a little bit. Nothing too crazy so far, about 20, 30 bucks a contract. There we go. I'm going to take a few off just to be safe here for 8%. If this next candle breaks that high, I want to get out. If this red candle breaks the 8 EMA, then I'm going to be pretty happy. So one or two more candles here is going to basically determine if I'm going to continue holding the position or close it. If you're in a very small account, I would just consider a stop loss at break even right now. You probably will get stopped out because it's the bid and the ask are so close. But the risk here is a little high, so you want to be more careful than not. We've left 3 wicks behind. So this is really good. It's looking like a period of weakness so far. Back around that 8% gain mark if you missed. Closing lower than the last candle would be perfect. That low was 392.70. If we close beneath that, it's going to be even better. That's going to reaffirm that price needs to correct lower. Now, the 8 EMA is going to act as some level of support. Again, 8, 9, 10% here. Nothing crazy. I'll slap a stop loss in here just to be safe. Because, again, we're shorting in a very strong uptrend. That is a ballsy thing to do. Okay, we've wicked that 0.65% retracement now essentially 5 times. So if there is a bear push, it happens now, like before 1040. It's 1036. It happens. If we break these MAs, you're going to break this SAR. You're going to get back to here. Easy. Or at least the top of the range. Watch this next candle here. You're at $5.90 a contract, about 60 bucks a contract. There we go. Come on. Come on. Now you do have this little period of consolidation here. So that could act as some level of small little baby support. All right, I'm going to take a few more here. Just because these are pretty expensive and it's a 0 day. All that jazz, that's 16%. Remember, getting back to this LOI puts us at around like 80. I mean, it depends on how quickly we get there, obviously. But it puts you at about 80 to 100% gain. And anything beneath that, it's going to be gravy. So the risk reward here is fantastic. We managed it. We waited for the prime moment to open the short. And now we get to reap the rewards. All right, you got over 100 bucks a contract now. Watch the SAR break here and the 21 EMA. I'm going to trim again. My next trim, I'm going to go to runners. There we go. My finger slipped, so it took me an extra second, but I ended up getting another few pennies. So that is 25%. We're breaking the SAR now, so keep a tight eye on this. Again, next trim will be runners. You also have the 50 MA here to catch it. So if we come back to like the 50 MA, that's roughly going to be at the top of this range as well. So that's going to be a point in time I'm going to want to take majority of my profit, maybe tighten up my stop. We just broke the red star here. So we should get maybe a little bit of a green boy here, 1 or 2, and then come back down, at least for this 50 MA tap. That's what I'm watching right now. $7 a contract from a 530 entry, so you got about, whatever that is, 170 bucks a contract. Nice little move here. Double snipes on the day. Can we get some gun emojis in the chat? The double snipe. Whew. The double. I missed the whole long, but I got the shorts. I missed the entire long, but I caught the shorts. That's how I like to play things. Like, people FOMO and they'll get in late and they're like, oh my god, Tesla's moving up so much, I want to get in. I'd rather wait for the period where I can make some money on the inverse. Even though I know I'm going against the trend, I would rather do that. And that goes for the same thing. If it's going down, I want to try to buy at the bottom to go up. All right, so this candle here could signal a reversal. So you want to keep that in mind. I'm actually going to go to runners right now. So that's runners at 30%. Just again, because that previous candle, now it's proving to be invalidated, but that previous candle indicated to me that we could have reversed here. Oh, perfect. I'm going to trim quarter runners here. 41%. Give me that 50 MA tap. That's that purple line on my chart if you're watching. Ooh, go $8. $8, $8, $8. Yes, $8. All right, taking more runners here. I'm going to actually trim half size. So I'm only going to leave a quarter runners left on this now. There you go. 53%. Tighten stop to 650. So now we've got, this is the meat of the move, right? I'm mega light now. So I made most of my money. If we get back to this LOI, like I said, we should have about an 80 to 100% gain. Depending on, you know, speed, velocity, etc. Because right now we have 395 average. Obviously, you do the math, you subtract the strike price by whatever the stock's trading at. It gives you your quick and dirty of how much it's worth. So getting around here, even tapping VWAP, almost gets these contracts to $10 intrinsically. Or, I'm sorry, we get you to more than $10 intrinsically if we go all the way down to VWAP. So that'll be pretty solid. Strange Maker with the guns in the chat. June says hi. Hey, June, what's up, man? Thanks for coming by. If you're just joining us, June, you missed a sniping Tesla twice in a row. Oh, baby. Called the top twice today. As the kids would say, sheesh. Big sheesh. Sheesh is in the chat. When you trim your first and second trims, what percentage of the second? Okay, that's a great question, Eddie, and it's one that I get quite frequently. So it is situational. So I will say most of the time, my first trim, I'm taking like 50%. I'm taking a large chunk. Because anything, it's options, you make your money real quick. So even on 10%, I'm taking a large chunk. Because if you actually sit down and double those percentages and see how they extrapolate, like, yeah, I could obviously make more money if I waited for 20%, right? But I'm trying to de-risk, but also not remove myself from the position entirely. So my first trim, I'm typically taking at least half my position off. And subsequently, as I go down, and it depends on price action. Like in this case, it's a 0 day, so risk is a little higher. You saw me trim pretty aggressively as we started to move down here, and then go to runners pretty aggressively. Even though I'm pretty confident we're going to go back to this LOI. So even though my trade plan was still, we're probably going to go here, I'm not going to hold my entire trade until that point. I know some people do that. That's just not for me. I'd rather make less money and still be right than lose money consistently. So it is very, very, very situational, I guess. Depends on the time I have on the contract. Depends if I'm in or out of the money. There's no blanket answer for you, unfortunately. But what I would say is don't be greedy. With that being said, I'm actually going to close my Tesla puts here. I do think it can go lower, but I'm going to fully realize the puts now. For a total percentage gain of 62%. God, I cannot type today. There we go. We basically got exactly what I wanted. I said we were going to go back here. We did. Done. Trade complete. Now, there could be more room, and if it wasn't a 0 day, maybe I would go to runners here normally. Like, I wouldn't even go to runners until I got to this point, until, like, the trade's complete, and then hope and think we could get more. But I'm not taking that risk on a 0 day option unless there's, like, volume and we're melting through the floor and everything, right? Because obviously, as you move more in and out of the money, your risk can change. So be mindful of that. That was a $5.30 entry on an 860 exit. That's why you want to be very, 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 very patient. And your patience will pay you dividends. Sorry if you see me typing, I'm updating my trade log. And if you don't have a trade log, you should. Where I write down everything I do every single week so I can hold myself accountable and ensure that I don't suck. Making sure that I'm pretty good at what I do. Okay. Bing, bing. Nice. So we had two pretty solid trades. We sniped the top of Tesla each time. Called the top at the top of the GP, entered the short, took the short, rode it to the LOI, closed it out, and now we're getting a reversal. Took the top, or took the short right here on that same LOI when we left that wick behind, closed out pretty quick. That was a quick one, right? Right down here-ish. Went to stop loss or break even, got stopped out. But both times were the top of a considerable rally. This was a better call, in my opinion. Obviously by a percentage and a dollar amount, but a better call because it's more consistent. Now, I would watch this still if you do want to consider a short on Tesla once again, and keep in mind it's very risky. But your EMAs are starting to get pinched in pretty close. So the trend has been very, very strong. So you can see your short-term EMAs, which are these ones, the blue, the green, and the pink that I have. Those are my shorter-term EMAs. My longer-term ones are the red, the purple, and the blue. And as they get closer and closer and closer, trend can flip. So when the short term cross over the long term, that pushes it more bearish, and vice versa. When the short term are over the long term, trend is more bullish. When you see them start to pinch closer, that is a possibility of trend reversing, which we're seeing right now. You'll see a period of indecision, and if bears break this LOI, you're going to come down a good amount on Tesla. Now, do I want to continue to push my luck? Not really. I don't. I'm happy with the money I've made today, and I'd like to continue that way. So I'm not going to push my luck here. I'm just saying that in case you want to entertain that idea, you can at least know what you should look out for, which is what I like to do on this program. Not necessarily tell you guys what I'm doing, but give you the tools to make your own decisions, which I think is more important than just following along. But you can also follow along if you like to. You know, something to learn from every single day. All right, last thing I'm going to leave you guys with. I'm going to zoom around the market real quick, and then I'm going to leave you on your ways. I hope you guys enjoyed the 3 streams this week. I'd love to do a lot more, so don't forget, once we get to 500 subscribers on that YouTube channel, it will be an every single day show, which I'll probably hate saying right now, but I do love doing the show with you guys. It's just a lot of talking. But I also hate dead air. And I know if you guys are watching, you want to be entertained, you want to be educated, you want to know what you're doing, and you also want to make some money. So if we can kill 3 birds with 1 stone, you're going to get that on this program. You're not going to get it on any other program where you're interested in what I have to say. You're thoroughly entertained. You feel the energy every morning, and maybe you make a little bit of money too. And that's exactly the kind of program I want to bring you guys, and hopefully I am doing you not a disservice, but a service to do that. So let's take a quick peek around the market before I set you guys free on your Friday. It is a full port Friday, a 0 DTE Friday. Make smart decisions, please, guys. The market is very tight. As I said before, recapping, looking at the SPY, we are below yesterday's all-time highs, and I do anticipate that to stay the course, at least for now, unless we see some small cap strength come back. The range on the SPY today is very tight. It's about $1, so your risk is should be lower, conversely, because the market isn't definitively picking a trend. Yes, it is going up, but it's not really with any fervorance, so you want to keep that in the back of your head. Conversely, your tech is pretty strong today, and why you're getting a mixed bag on SPY is because your IWM isn't. So you're seeing that clear divergence, money coming out of small caps into mega caps today as your mega caps move up. And I will remind you that this isn't necessarily too concerning or, I guess, bad. Mainly due to the fact that IWM moved up considerably larger than the Qs and SPY yesterday, so getting a little bit more of a period of a stronger pullback on IWM today does make a little bit more sense in the full grand scheme of things. Looking at volatility, volatility has been pretty flat today and trending to the downside overall with a dropping VVIX. This supports a bullish structure in the market as it stands right now, and as I will continue to reiterate to you guys, the market is a cautiously bullish market, with me leaning a 60-40 bull to bear ratio on the market, meaning we are at the position where things could flip bearish at any point in time, but until they do, this is a bull market, meaning you don't want to be swinging a bunch of shorts overnight, you don't want to be long a bunch of puts, you do want to be cautiously bullish. As I said, you want to remain a bull, and when the time to be a bear comes, you're going to know it, essentially. You'll see the signs, and if not, you can always come back to this program, and I'll tell you the signs. Looking at NVIDIA right now, had a decent base that we're consolidating throughout the day. Really, pretty much a tight range on this one, too, at least for NVIDIA. Only about $2. Pretty rangy here throughout the day. Just broke this top of this range, so look to see if you get any follow through here. Doesn't really look like it. In fact, I would anticipate it to potentially double top unless you see a lot of volume come in at the top for a break. Looking at Microsoft, like I said, this one's a little deceiving. It does say it's up about 1.5%. However, it's mostly attributed to that after hours move that we saw yesterday. And now basically has been selling off that after hours move, believe it or not, and kind of just floating around here. Now it is set up pretty bullish. You could call this a flat top setting up here on the whole day, and then on this little micro period of time here. So you have like two flat tops kind of cooking here on Microsoft. However, I would just be super cautious about it. Now, it could break, and if it does break, I would look for 509 to 510 for getting too excited. So your risk here isn't fantastic to the upside. You can catch another $1 or so, maybe $2. But keep that in mind to tighten up those stops if it starts to break and push up there, that 510 area, if it doesn't look like it's going to give, you may want to get the hell out of the way. Looking at Apple, had a nice little rally off that 230 break and hold, pushing to the upside here. Probably one of the stronger names on the Mag 7 with the exception of Tesla today. Pushing to the upside, getting a little bit of retracement here. Look for some consolidation around the POC at the high of the day. Again, I don't really anticipate it closing above the gap. Let me rephrase that. I don't anticipate it pushing much further above the gap fill from September 9th, which, again, that was at 233.36, so a few shekels off of where we are now. So I don't really anticipate that. However, if the bulls do step in and that does happen, your next area of resistance would be that 236.85 level. Looking at Meta, intraday, I just wouldn't touch it. It's just me. It is making lower highs. Do with that what you will. Google, again, needs a period of cooling off. It's leaving a wick up here the last 2 days. Getting some level of a pullback here on Google would make some sense. I would be cautious on Google if you're a bull. Open, and I'll continue covering Open just for a little bit because I know there's a lot of retail interest in it, so I will continue to cover it. As I alluded to yesterday in the video, and as I alluded to previously on the show, you want to be very careful on Open, especially in options. IV is very high, and I do anticipate Open to continue to grind down around this 814 level or until that 8 EMA catches up. Until then, I wouldn't be overtly bullish on Open. I'd actually be very defensive If I'm long on stock, I might want to consider tightening a stop loss somewhere in this like $7 area if I've been long on stock, which I'm not. But if I'm looking to buy now on open, I wouldn't be a buyer on open unless it's around this 814 area, which I will then come back and revisit. Tesla today, really impressive move. We caught 2 shorts on Tesla. It's still holding up decently well, and this period of time here is going to be really important. So between now and like the next 30 minutes or so, you're at a decision point. Right now, you're building a base where it could break to the upside and get a push up to 400. That is a realistic possibility. The market loves whole numbers, but that does involve 2 things. It involves it getting out of this GP, which I don't theorize it happening today. I don't know why this went wonky, but I don't really see that as a possibility today. With that being said, it's up 5%, so anything's possible, or $20 on the day, which is massive. And yesterday it went up, whatever this is. I can't even get that close. There we go. Wait, nope. Oh, come on. There we go. Yesterday was up also 5%. I don't anticipate it going higher. I personally wouldn't bet on it going higher. Can it? Anything can happen. Your confirmation of that being even a possibility is breaking this high a day, which will break the GP on much, much, much higher volume. You want to see volume on the 1 minute in excess of 1.5 million, in my opinion, above high a day. If you don't have volume supporting that break, it will come back down by end of day. So you need at least, in my opinion, 1.5 million of volume on the high a day break if you're interested in seeing Tesla push higher. On the 5 minute as well, this is leaning more bearish. So I would, if you have profits on Tesla, lock them in, tighten stops, whatever. Don't be greedy. Amazon, kind of making like a little cup and handle-y kind of look on the 5 minute here. Sitting around the 200 MA, so use that as a point or trigger point if you are interested or already long on Amazon. That's going to wrap up the show. Wait, Grab at 585. We are 6 cents away from Grab breaking that key level of 591. Will it happen today? Man, I'd love for it to. I don't know if it will. Well, that would be a fantastic, fantastic thing. If this closes the week above 591, that would be crazy. I'd be pretty hyped. So, more hyped because I shared it on the program. This is one that everyone could have a clean opportunity to get into, and it has a fantastic setup on multiple time frames. It's just like, this is like one of those perfect set, like it rarely comes along where multiple things line up. And this is one of those names where like multiple things lined up. That's why I have leaps. So fantastic name. Hopefully we see that break today. And if not, I'm not going to be mad. This is still a very, very, very solid move on the day. Well, that's going to do it for me, guys. Next week, we'll have some more shows for you. Stay tuned to my X account, which I will announce them. As I said before, I appreciate you guys coming by. If you haven't already, drop a quick like on the stream. Say bye. But moving on a lot of things around in my personal life, so we will get back to our regularly scheduled streams or a little bit more in advance when there is time to, or when I can definitely confirm it. But the last thing I want to do is schedule a stream with you guys and be like, oh, I got to cancel. Don't want to do that. So as soon as I can, I like to give you guys at least 24 hours a heads up. That way you know when I'm going live. That's always going to be on my X account, and I should get used to posting on my YouTube as well. So maybe I'll do that as well. So if you follow me on YouTube, hit subscribe. There's a community tab. I will start posting in there as well. So some will say you need an angle to trade. Nope, that's not the outro. Some will say you need an edge to trade. Well, I like to look at things from a different angle, and that's always what you get right here on the Atomcash angle. Have a great rest of your day, guys. And remember, precision beats prediction every damn time. I'll see you next week.
The time has passed, and that's a wrap.